Welcome to the very first video of my YouTube channel. I am Jack Greenaway and you're watching Jack F1. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Will he lose his seat? I love Doohan. He's Australian. I'm Australian. He's a Jack. I'm a Jack. And I was pumped when Alpine leadership, including Ollie Oates and Flavio Briatore, seemingly shut down all the rumours. We've just passed now what many people have stated that it was his last race in F1, his 6th race deadline, mid-season dumping to get him out for Franco Colapinto instead. We have new reports stating that Alpine leadership, including Ollie Oates, backing, at least for the mid-season break. But Flavio, on the other hand, apparently he wants him out for Franco instead. Franco has sponsors name-dropping a potential return date in Imola. Is this true? Does Doohan deserve the seat? Or is the cataclysmic end of Doohan's F1 career set in stone? Is Colapinto a sure thing? Or will the seat go to someone else entirely? Let's find out. So now, I'm going to be a lawyer for Franco Colapinto. Option 1. Franco Colapinto gets the seat. Why? Well, let's take it back to the start of it all, to the beginning of his early career as a young kid, back in Buenos Aires. Born in 2003 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Franco Colapinto began karting at age 9 and quickly dominated Argentina's national scene, winning multiple championships in the cadet and ICA junior categories. His success earned him spots in top international events like the Rotax Max Challenge, Grand Finals and WSK Series, where he delivered strong performances despite not clinching titles. In 2019, he jumped into single-seaters and his career took off. That year, he won 11 out of 21 races in the Spanish F4 Championship, becoming the first Argentinian ever to win a European F4 title. His rise caught the eye of two-time world champion Fernando Alonso, who played a pivotal role in his career from this point onwards. Moving forward, Colapinto continued to build an impressive resume. In 2020, he finished 3rd overall in New Zealand's highly competitive Toyota Racing Series, a proving ground for top young junior talent. Between 2019 and 2020, he raced in FIA Formula Renault Euro Cup, grabbing multiple wins and finishing 3rd in the championship 2 years in a row, showing consistency and serious pace. Then came 2021, a busy year. He dipped into endurance racing with G-Drive Racing in the Asian Le Mans Series, helping the team finish 2nd overall at the end of the year. He also took part in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the iconic race, finishing 13th overall, a solid result for one of motorsport's toughest races. That same year, he competed in the Formula Regional European Championship, where despite not taking a win, he displayed competitive pace throughout the season. In 2022 and 2023, he got the promotion. He stepped up to Formula 3, collecting 2 wins and multiple podiums. He wrapped up P4 in the championship with MP Motorsport in 2023. It was a standout season. That performance earned him a spot in Formula 2 for the following year. And not just that, he became a Williams Academy driver, a move that would prove vital and pivotal for his F1 future. Expectations were high for a top 6 finish in F2. But on a dynamic mid-season switch, Colapinto was called up to F1 to replace a struggling Logan Sargent, completing a meteoric rise through the ranks. Now, aside from his strong junior career, where he displayed a combination of versatility, adaptability, and pace, what makes him such a compelling option for the Alpine seat? Is he overhyped? Why on earth is there so much hype around him? Well, Colapinto is backed exponentially by big money and big sponsors, with mass amounts of wealth. At Williams in the final 9 races of 2024, yes, just 9 races, he and his sponsors brought in at least £420,000 per race, equating to around £3.8 million for the remainder of the season. Bringing big relief to any F1 team in a highly competitive, cost-based sport. The kind of money that could, hypothetically, speak louder than lap times. For Alpine, his signing would be quite a smart and lucrative one. Reason number 2. His performance against well-regarded, quick and fast Alex Albon. Let's break down the head-to-heads over Franco's time at Williams with Alex Albon. So the qualifying, including sprint qualifying, the overall head-to-head is 9-3 in favour of Albon. Now when you look at the face of it, it looks like it's heavily in favour of Albon. But when you look at the average qualifying time gap, you'll see that the gap was only 0.280 of a second. And so that gap is quite close when you consider there was 9 races over a season, and especially in relation to Albon's previous teammates, Sargent and Latifi. If you exclude sprints, Albon was only out-qualified twice in 3 years. That's insane. Colapinto achieved that result in only 9 races. A far bigger improvement compared to those 2 previous drivers. Now, although Franco didn't win the head-to-head against Alex, his performances were convincing, displaying pace right away, attracting plaudits and attention from all places around the paddock. Over his 9 races, he accumulated 5 points to Alex's 8. Reason number 3. Red Bull wanted him. Seen in Christian Horner and Helmut Marko post the USA Grand Prix in Austin, the Argentine had the Austrian marketing company's interest peaked, with Carlos Sainz having already been signed to drive for Williams prior to Colapinto's introduction into F1. It was well known throughout the paddock that he was free for the taking. Red Bull had driver problems of their own, having just dropped Daniel Ricciardo to Singapore the race before Austin, and inserted Lawson into the fold. There was immense competition for the Red Bull seat. Who is going to make their case to replace a struggling Sergio Perez? Now, to quote Christian Horner in an interview with Sky Sports F1, he says, "I think Franco, again, is a kid that is doing really well. Of course, you're always going to keep an eye on the driver market, and I think Franco definitely has got the qualities to be a potential star of the future." Now, Christian Horner, part of the organization that found Max Verstappen, is now saying that Colapinto can be a potential star of the future. Fast forward to Lawson's failure at Red Bull in 2025. Speculation and comments start again, with many news sources claiming that Helmut Marko visited the Alpine hospitality to start talks about either potential loan or more permanent acquisition over Colapinto's future. However, eventually these talks subsided, with a more simpler move for Red Bull materializing, where they would just swap out Lawson for Tsunoda and do a simple driver swap between the 2 teams. The interest from such a big team, nonetheless, from both senior and junior branches, speaks volumes for the acclaim that Colapinto had gained in the paddock. Reason number 4. Flavio Briatore trusts him. Now, the supposed internal disagreements on the driver lineup for Alpine over the future has only accelerated the speculation. Allegedly, Flavio trusts Colapinto with the future of this team more than Jack Doohan. While actions speak louder than words, words do matter. And upon Colapinto's signing for Alpine in January, Briatore exclaimed that Franco is among the best young talents in motorsport right now, and that they are keeping a close eye on him for the future. Now, what does this mean? Alarming words before Doohan even started a race in the 2025 season. According to many outlets, this praise hasn't faded in his mind. If this is the truth, having someone of that stature in the team backing you really means that Doohan's time is pretty much over. Reason number 5. The Argentinian fan base. Now, the Argentinians are very, very passionate fans. Colapinto, the first Argentine Formula One driver since Gaston Mazecan in 2001, Argentina now has produced formidable drivers over the history. Some you may know: 4-time world champion Juan Manuel Fangio and Carlos Reutemann. Not having a driver in motorsport's top competition for over 20 years has starved a craving, hungry fan base. Colapinto instantly became a celebrity, and that kind of influence is big both for the team and for F1 as a whole. Reason number 6. I'm sure you've all heard the complaints, concerns, and criticisms of Jack Doohan. He's so far off Gasly, he crashes. His junior career wasn't impressive. Helmut Marko even touted him as a C-grade driver. Pains me to say it, there are arguments for all of these. He hasn't scored points yet, and he has only outqualified Gasly once in a sprint qualifying in China. Definitely underwhelming on the face of it. He has had 2 big crashes in Australia and Japan, as well as an altercation with Isaac Hadjar in the sprint in China. That has cost Alpine millions of dollars, but has also generated negative results. Marko's grading of Doohan is based on what he saw in his junior career and at his time in the Red Bull Junior Driver Academy, where he didn't necessarily flourish. He didn't win any major championships, and there are many red flags. Are they enough, though, to throw him out? Do the benefits of Colapinto far outweigh the benefits of Jack Doohan? Now, let me be a lawyer rebutting Colapinto's case. Does Doohan have a case? Well, let's say that Doohan keeps it. Why? Firstly, who was his father? Jack Doohan, born the 20th of January in 2003 in Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia. The son of Australian motorcycle legend Mick Doohan. Mick Doohan, a 5-time MotoGP world champion, was good friends with 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher, who would be the one to give young Jack Doohan his first ever go-kart. This father-son relationship between Jack and Mick is one that will help him. Not that it always actualizes into results, but having championship pedigree in your corner, giving you wisdom and advice your entire life, is only going to benefit you. Obviously a clear factor for his road to F1. Now, of course, on the surface, one may say, well, that's a weak argument. But is it really? Sure, you could point to a number of champions whose sons don't materialize into anything in terms of they have underwhelming careers. However, I could also point into the direction of many who have had successful careers, even replicating or beating those of their fathers. For example, father Keke Rosberg, 1-time F1 world champion in 1982, and son Nico Rosberg, who famously won the driver's title, beating teammate Lewis Hamilton Mercedes in 2016. Another father-son pairing, Graham Hill and Damon Hill. who share 3 world championships between them. Now, I'm not saying that Doohan will win a championship because his dad did. That'd be a logical fallacy. However, what I am saying, the exposure to championship winning experience will give Jack the upper hand over his competitors in a way that is quite rare. Reason number 2. His junior career is much better than people give him credit for. He had many glimmers of hope and sparks of brilliance. He started karting competitively in 2012 at the age of 9. Following gradual progress, wins, and quick pace in his early years, he wound up winning back-to-back karting championships at the Australian National Karting Championship in 2015 and 2016. His career accelerated from there, going internationally and coming third in the FIA Karting European Championship, where the top competitors have all competed in before. Names like Hamilton, Rosberg, and Schumacher. He also finished 6th overall in the Karting World Championship in 2017 in the top OK Junior class. He then moved to the Formula Series single-seat open-wheel racing at age 15 in the F4 British Championship. He picked up 3 wins, finishing 5th overall, showing quick pace and promise. The next year, in 2019, he moved to the Asian F3 Championship. He won 5 races, finished with 20 points, behind the championship leader in P2. He also participated in the Euro Formula Open, where he scored a few podium finishes. In 2020, he made the big jump to the FIA Formula 3 World Championship, where he had his most underwhelming season to date, where his highest finish was P11. However, Doohan himself admits this, claiming it a very, very tough season. But I will learn more from this than I would from a more successful season. He was right, showing great mental strength to learn from mistakes, where he put in his best season yet to date, up to that point. In 2021, in a great fight with Red Bull driver Dennis Hauger, the battle would go on for most of the season. However, while Hauger had the edge and won the Drivers' Championship, with Doohan finishing 2nd, Doohan still won the last race of the season in a clutch moment to win the team championship by 4 points. Over the course of this season, he picked up 7 podiums, 4 wins, and 179 points. He got the promotion to FIA Formula 2 in late 2021, finishing the last 2 races, replacing Dutchman Richard Verschoor. He had an impressive 2nd race. He avoided all chaos to finish 5th place, and he also qualified an impressive P2 in Abu Dhabi. For his first full season in F2 in 2022, Doohan made the switch to the Alpine Academy and began driving for Virtuosi Racing. He had a promising campaign, though riddled by bad luck, particularly in Jeddah. He had a disqualification for a technical infringement. In Baku, he had unfortunate collisions that weren't his fault. In Austria, poor wet weather strategy. In Hungary, gearbox failure. Monza, unfortunate collision with Doohan. And Abu Dhabi, had a loose wheel coming out of the pits. All of these, and more importantly, all of these, came at the expense of great numbers of points. Even through all of that though, he secured a top 6 finish with 5 podiums, 3 wins, and 128 points. His bad luck continued into his final season in F2 in 2023. For the first half of the season, his team had major setup problems, giving both drivers complications early on. However, mid-season, Doohan turned his fortunes around, getting pole position, fastest lap, and the win in Hungary. He would then go on to claw back to finish the season 3rd
achieving 3 wins and 5 podiums again, with 163 points. He entered into his reserve driver role at Alpine and then was given the seat to replace Ocon for the 2025 season.
Reason number 3. Doohan's mentality and demeanor. One of Jack Doohan's most compelling qualities is his mentality, demeanor, and approach to situations. This is the most challenging aspect in sports. You could have all of the talent in the world, but not have the mental strength to back it up. For instance, this is the exact argument being made right now in the championship fight between Lando and Oscar Piastri. Lando is highly critical of himself and his mistakes, perfectionist in his own right, over-analyzing the situation and generating more mistakes because of it. Oscar is calm, cool, collected, doesn't just dwell on his mistakes, and he actually has the advantage right now. I see that in Jack. He approaches the press in a way that is very similar to Daniel Ricciardo, albeit a bit more reserved. I mean, there's no one like Daniel. He smiles and is incredibly polite, but not on track, and that is crucial. He goes for it. Most people criticize his defense in China against Hadjar. However, I commend it. I thought it was cunning and tactical, much like Kevin Magnussen, Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, and many other greats of the past. You put the elbows out in any situation. And that is the mark of a true driver and a true fighter. But what impresses me the most, and surely Alpine too, is his ability to get past mistakes. To quote Jack after his Australian Grand Prix crash, he said, "A little bit more left foot rather than the right next time. Lesson learned." This is the perfect approach to an error. You move on and improve rather than dwell on it and get depressed, establishing a perpetual spiral of bad form. He picks himself up by the bootstraps and gets on with it, a trait that many champions possess. One I am sure his dad has passed it on to him. This is something that a team would be hard-pressed to find in any other driver, one that could make Jack an invaluable asset for the future. Reason number 4. Raw pace. Throughout Doohan's career, one thing has remained consistent and constant. He is excellent in qualifying, frequently getting pole positions in his junior categories, meaning he can get the most out of a car when pushing it to the max. Now, translating that to F1 is a completely different thing. Has he done that so far? Well, going up against a qualifying maestro and Gasly himself, it's difficult for any driver, let alone a rookie. So let's compare their two head-to-head. Doohan has shown impressive pace thus far. He was unlucky in Austria, and a potential Q3 was on the cards there. However, Hamilton's spin ruled him out with a yellow flag impeding and interrupting in his quick lap. He was faster than Gasly each alternating lap until that point. In China, he out-qualified Gasly in the sprint. So what's the average margin? Well, Gasly leads Doohan by 0.272 of a second on average. A small margin considering Gasly's prowess. Remember, if Colapinto was considered impressive against Albon, with basically an equal qualifying margin to his counterpart Doohan of 0.28 a second, then Alpine would acknowledge that as a bar well met. His pace, it's there. Reason number 5. His potential. Does Jack have potential to be a great driver, enough to solidify himself in F1 for years to come? Yes.
at least as much as Colapinto. You combine that strong mentality and raw pace, you will only learn and grow until you are quick, consistent, and seasoned as a driver. You look at the current F1 field, the thing that sets drivers apart is 1, their pace, and 2, their mentality, which will lead to their consistency. Doohan has that. Alpine believes it could be there, which is the most compelling argument for the seat. Reason number 6. Why did they pick him in the first place? So last year there was an audition held at Circuit Paul Ricard between Alpine reserve drivers Jack Doohan and Mick Schumacher, supposedly for the Alpine seat in 2025. Clearly, based on the end result, Doohan made his mark, beating out childhood friend Mick Schumacher. His pace sold his case to the team, but what else was there? What else made Alpine pick him over everybody else that was there? Well, Flavio Briatore is his manager. Yes, you heard that right. Flavio is his manager, according to various sources, including Planet F1. Now, why on earth would his manager call for his axing? Would Mark Webber, if he were a key figure at McLaren, call for the removal of Oscar Piastri for another driver? No, it simply wouldn't happen. However, that would be a major conflict of interest for the team, like Lawrence Stroll and Lance Stroll's situation at Aston Martin, but that's well known. As such, Flavio has voiced that he manages those that give him something in terms of pace. This aligns with the team's interests. But if he's in Doohan's management team, there's an affinity there. A personal relationship where he would want the best for Jack. So simply put, there would be no added motivation to axe Doohan if he's performing adequately enough. If he's performing good enough for the seat, he's not going to want to axe him. There's no extra motivation there. Logically, it's just not going to work. If he supposedly played a role in getting an F1 seat for Jack Doohan, why on earth would he go mid-season and destroy that shot without unequivocal damning evidence to suggest that Doohan is not deserving of that seat? A convincing, reassuring dynamic for Jack, of course. Finally, Doohan is highly analytical. Listen to his appearances on F1 TV during practice sessions. In 2024 as a reserve driver for Alpine, particularly in Mexico, he understands the car, the inputs it needs, the setup improvements that need to be made, and can give great feedback for future upgrades. A trait that is known in great drivers. A trait that can be invaluable to a team, as James Vowles, the team's boss at Williams, has recently emphasized. When praising Carlos Sainz, he stated that, quote, "There are intangibles that you have to consider. When you look at Sainz, every team he has driven for has finished in a better position than when he started there. That is invaluable for a team." On the face of it, Doohan has this ability and could bring Alpine to better positions if given the chance, which is ultimately why they signed him, praising, quote, his feedback on the simulator, saying that it has been vital to their progress. Reason number 7, a criticism on Colapinto. Much like Doohan, there have been criticism on Colapinto's end too. Things like, yes, he's quick, but he crashes and he doesn't learn from them. He's inconsistent in results. Poor racecraft creates unforced errors. He's overhyped by passionate fans. Again, it pains me to say it, But there is evidence for this too. Let's not forget it. He had major crashes in F1 last year, a big one in Vegas, and another 2 in Brazil. Damages that cost more than $3 million US. Almost as much as he brought in with sponsorships. With reports coming out saying that Williams was struggling after those crashes on the weekends. Red Bull actually didn't sign him because of this very reason. The hype was real before the Brazilian Grand Prix, but after that weekend, it completely dropped off a cliff. The radio chatter about a potential blockbuster move for the Argentinian completely dissipated. To sum this up, here's an excerpt from an interview with Russian sports car driver Roman Rosanov, where he suggests that the hype surrounding Colapinto is overblown. In 2021, there were teammates at the G-Drive team in WEC. Rosanov told Russia's Championat that he was not overly impressed with either Colapinto's driving in sports cars or in a Formula 1 car at Williams in 2024. To quote him, Franco Colapinto did not make any splash in Formula 1. He had 2 options: drive carefully, but then he might not be remembered, or push as hard as possible, which led to constant crashes. At Williams, he did exactly the same thing as he did at G-Drive. Franco is a good driver in terms of lap time, but in terms of results, he has never lived up to expectations. He makes a lot of mistakes, and unfortunately, he does not seem to learn from them. So, I present to you option 3. What if none of them get it? Why? Well, Alpine have other options in their driver academy, such as Paul Aron, Victor Martins, Ryo Hirakawa, who all have shown varying degrees of promise in their racing careers. What about outside of the academy though? Are their contracts finishing up? Well, there's George Russell, Valtteri Bottas, and many others. Are they an option? Well, there were brief rumours about a random and potential blockbuster move for George Russell to Alpine after he was spotted talking to Flavio Briatore in China. He would be a stunning signing for the French outfit. However, all of these seem unlikely due to Russell's advancing talks and ties with Mercedes, and the advanced focus on the Doohan Colapinto saga. There are already 2 drivers fighting for it. However, if the criticisms on the aforementioned drivers are too much of a problem, Alpine may decide to go completely and entirely different direction. So, my caution for Alpine. For goodness sake, don't do what you did with Piastri. You have 2 good drivers there, assess them properly, and make a logical choice. I'd also prefer it if you didn't add another Red Bull to the grid. We don't need another saga like that. So who's keeping the seat? My take? Doohan keeps it. At least to the end of the season. He's shown enough. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe. My name is Jack, and you just watched Jacked F1.